Guy ruined 7 lives for clouts. This guy's name is Noah Gal. This guy was a popular TikToker and Instagrammer, and the videos he would make is he would get in his BMW and then film himself driving at really high speeds. And then he would ask his audience to guess how fast he was going in the comments. And a few months ago, when Noah was 17, he was driving as fast as 182 miles per hour. And all of a sudden, he hit a Nissan Rogue that was parked in front of him from behind. The impact from Noah's BMW was so strong that the back of the Nissan essentially got crushed into the front. And these are 2 of the victims. A total of 6 people were in that Nissan Rogue and they all lost their lives. And Noah got arrested, of course, and he's looking at 6 counts of vehicular homicide, which could very well add up to be a life sentence.
Out here playing and ruined 7 lives, including his. That's crazy, bro.
Weird crime facts, part 51. In the late 70s, actor Tim Allen spent 2.5 years in a federal prison for trafficking 600 grams of cocaine. He would have faced life behind bars if he hadn't given up the names of 24 other dealers in exchange for a lighter sentence.
He snitched. Hey, Tim Allen out here a snitch. What?
Mona Lisa painting wasn't very famous until it was stolen from the Louvre Museum in 1911. The empty space on the wall attracted far more visitors than the painting ever did itself. In 1719, prisoners in Paris were offered freedom if they married a prostitute and moved to Louisiana. A silent man in the UK keeps getting arrested for standing on the same road to block traffic. He never speaks a single word to the court or even his own lawyer, and every time he's released, he just repeats the same crime. A judge once commissioned a psychiatric report on him, but the man once again refused to speak to the doctor.
He just want to go to jail. He need a place to live. I know people personally that commit crimes just to go to jail during the winter, but they don't want to be out there on that ground. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Weird crime facts, part 45. When El Chapo wanted to eat at a restaurant, his team of gunmen would lock down the entire building. They would then demand everyone's phones, promising that they would be returned at the end of the evening. Chapo would then come in and feast, return all the phones, pay everyone's tabs, and head off into the night. One of Russia's most popular TV shows in the 90s challenged contestants to steal a car. If they could evade police for more than 35 minutes, they got to keep it. In 2015, a Canadian man was arrested after tying 100 balloons to a garden chair and flying over the city of Calgary. Donald Harvey was a nurse and serial killer who killed 37 of his victims with cyanide. He was only caught when one of his victims' coroners had the rare genetic ability to smell cyanide.
I wish I was around when they was doing that. If you could steal a car and evade the police for at least 30 minutes, you get to keep the car. I probably would have had a lot of cars.
He was wiping his butt with the hot dog buns and crapping in the taco meat. Like, what? Y'all, the more details that are coming out about this janitor out of New Jersey that was allegedly contaminating food and doing some weird crap on Telegram, I'm literally horrified for those parents and those children. Y'all are not ready for these details. They are absolutely horrifying. Just knowing that this man was around these children for multiple years is terrifying. Okay, so he was apparently in this group on Telegram called Wolf's Piss Play. That was the name of the group. It's apparently a group for men to meet up with other men, and that is how someone saw that he was on there. He had been posting, I guess, these awful posts. This person noticed that he was taking pictures and videos in a school setting, and he was doing things that could definitely endanger the children. The person downloaded 23 pictures and 9 videos to their phone and took them to police. What was allegedly on this flash drive, y'all? So all of the trigger warnings for this. So he had been writing that he ripped a hole in one of the beanbags in the library and decided to pee inside of it. And that apparently excited him, so he went and dry humped some pillows. He said that he put his feces in the taco meat and that they ate that shit up. He was taking utensils and bowls from the cafeteria and rubbing them all over his junk and his butt crack and everything. And then he just put it back on the shelf for the kids and the staff to use. And apparently, video clearly shows him going crazy with these hot dog buns. Like, I'm in shock. He was wiping his butt with them and his junk. And then he spit on them and put them in a plastic bag to be served. He was seen apparently violating some more pillows, putting bleach on food. Like, it just goes on and on. And apparently cops went to the school and seen that the library and the cafeteria matched up perfectly to the post that he was making. I just don't know what would possess someone to wipe their ass with a hot dog bun.
Wiping your ass with a hot dog bun is wow.
TikTokers Who Did Terrible Things, episode 36. Lamar Lewis Cruz, aka Lil Mar. otherwise known as Mar the Trucker on TikTok. Creator class type, SoundCloud Trucker. Specialty, controversial as claim to fame, weird, funny, or downright disgusting, depending on what you know so far. Well, the now 22-year-old Seattle-born rapper is absolutely no stranger to controversy. And by now, I'm sure a few of you have seen him on various platforms rolling around in this galaxied-out Corvette while rapping about his body count. However, to truly understand his downfall, we have to take it back to 2018 when he posted a now viral video documenting his exchange with, let's just say, a local call girl. To which...
Out here in the middle of nowhere on a fucking dead end at this weird-ass looking creepy hotel. Wish me luck!
The destination is on your right.
Woo! I did it! I lost my virginity.
Well, that video went so viral, it was enough to get his name out there and on the map. On the other hand, this was only the beginning of a long list of poor decisions ultimately leading to a much bigger problem. Now, we're not going to discuss how he got his first face tattoo on an impulse, then set up a GoFundMe page in order to get it removed 2 weeks later, or the time he did something utterly disgusting with a chicken sandwich, devoured it, then posted the video online. And to be quite honest, we can even look past the time he was arrested for filming himself cutting it up, rolling down the highway, driving erratic as hell. You see, by early 2019, Mar had finally developed the master plan, one that would absolutely catapult him into the stratosphere of internet stardom. That is, starting a false rumor he had impregnated an individual well below the age of 18. But it was the following headlines that truly did him in, stating Little Mar had allegedly an underage girl in a Walmart parking lot, a crime to which he would later spend 4 months behind bars after accepting a plea deal. Now, it's worth pointing out, although he has since addressed this situation many times, stating that everything was just a simple misunderstanding and that she lied about her age, the damage had already been done. Anyone who had actually been listening to his music essentially dipped out. Which brings us to Mar the Trucker, with his first few uploads garnering some of the most canted engagement since the My Chalky Milk Girl, which, for those of you who don't know, legend has it, he is still trying to back that truck into his spot on.
That dude's wow.
A weird crime. It's hard to believe, but a man in Virginia was dubbed the Virginia Butt Slasher. Johnny Pimentel would go into stores and create a ruse. He would drop clothes on the ground, women would offer help, and then they would feel a stab in their butt. The man would disappear before the women would notice a gash on their butt. He fled to Peru and was arrested and served 7 years.
What type of mother walk around just stabbing booties all day? Come here. Bring your ass here. Who do that? Stabbing booties. Man, stabbing booties, man.
This is a 29-year-old high school student. Haijong Shin is a college graduate, but she pretended to be a 15-year-old girl by faking her birth certificate so that she could go to New Brunswick High School in New Jersey. So far, we have no explanation for why this woman did this, and she really committed. Shin went to school for 4 days. She participated in lessons, talked to guidance counselors, and even tried to make friends before the whole thing was discovered. The president of the New Jersey Board of Education defended accidentally letting this grown woman enroll in school by saying basically, his words, she doesn't look like grandma. And yeah, she can kind of pass for a teen. And basically his entire point was, it's a public school, so if you have the documentation, you're allowed to go. When the students found out, some of them were understandably pretty creeped out though, especially considering the fact that Shin apparently tried to make friends and exchange numbers and was even texting other students to hang out. The whole scheme fell apart one day when she tried to sign herself out of school but wasn't allowed to because she was a minor, and she basically said, just kidding, I'm almost 30, which probably came as a bit of a shock to administrators.
What? So you telling me that it would have kept working if she tried to sign herself out? Oh my God. Oh my God, that was stupid. The whole thing was stupid. But I'm glad she tried to sign herself out. The whole faculty would have never knew.
Weird Crime Facts, Part 34. In 2011, a Swedish man named Richard Handel was arrested for trying to split atoms in his kitchen. He was charged with unauthorized possession of nuclear materials, but said he just wanted to see if it was possible to split atoms at home. Russia's toughest prison uses Caucasian mountain shepherds as guard dogs. They weigh up to 200 pounds and are said to have the stopping power of a .45 caliber gun. In 2013, a man from China was ordered to pay a fine equivalent to $1,600 for a minor offense. In response, he paid in coins, which took a total of 18 employees working full days just to count. A Chicago man once bought a car for $600, registered it in his ex-girlfriend's name, and parked it at O'Hare Airport. The car then accumulated over $100,000 in parking tickets, which the city asked the ex-girlfriend to pay.
Damn. Cold game. Very cold game.
This man is Davis Wallman. He had just returned home from a wedding, and he was pretty tired, so he decided to just go to bed and call it a night. But a few hours later, he was awakened by the sound of a weird thumping in the ceiling, which he thought was strange because nobody else was supposed to be in the house. He decided to go to the attic to investigate, but to his surprise, the attic door was locked. He knew for a fact he didn't lock that door, so now things were really starting to freak him out. At this point, Davis is pounding on the door, demanding whoever's in there to open it. Then he heard a female voice reach out and say, "Jimmy, is that you?" Davis broke the door and saw this woman standing in his attic. Then she told him that a man named Jimmy gave her permission to stay in this attic. I'm sure at this point, Davis was trying to figure out if he was having a bad dream or not. And when he realized this was very real, he called the police. But unfortunately, it took the police 18 minutes to come to Davis's house, at which point the woman had already escaped. To this day, Davis has no idea who she was or where she is now.
I don't know now. Yeah, I don't know. That sound kind of sketchy there. I don't know. What y'all think? Get in the comments.
Weird crime. Most self-defense techniques that are typically outlawed by mixed martial arts are very effective in the street, such as the eye gouge. But a woman in Colorado took this technique in the wrong direction, and I gotta warn you, it's disturbing. In Colorado Springs, Grace Todd was drinking with her husband when he said some things and apparently triggered her to attack him. Using both thumbs, she gouged his eyes out and placed one of them into his mouth, and he ended up choking on his own airway. The man died, and his wife was subsequently charged.
Damn. You gouge a man's eye out, stick it in his mouth, and then he die on his own eyeball? Talk about weird ass crime. Damn.
I thought I had heard about all the worst human experiments done in therapy, but then I heard about this one. Back in the 1950s, a psychologist named Dr. Cameron was doing brainwashing experiments that were basically torture. Heads up, this is what today's episode is about, and if you don't want spoilers, just listen to the episode. Basically, Dr. Cameron had a theory that you could take out someone's personality and put a different one inside of them. But how do you get someone's personality out of them? Well, first,
Right.
Dr. Cameron would use 15 times the amount of electroshocks that were recommended at the time. He did this to try to wipe out people's memories. But that didn't work, so he would induce people into comas using hallucinogenics and barbiturates. Then, when people were fully incapacitated, he would play pre-recorded tapes on a loop. And these tapes would say things like, "You're a good mother and people enjoy your company," just over and over and over again. And you may be thinking, why would anyone sign up for this? Well, a lot of these people were students that were looking to make a few extra bucks by joining a paid study. But when they joined, they would become so incapacitated so quickly that they were unable to leave. This doesn't even begin to cover the full extent of this story, which I do a deep dive on in this week's episode, and I really recommend you check it out.
Trying to get somebody conscious out their head is wild. But you know what? Ain't no telling what they doing nowadays, because, bro, science and technology has come so far since then. Yeah, they probably already getting the consciousness out. Y'all remember the movie? Get Out. Wild out here.
The judge tries to get Kemp's attention, but he's completely ignored.
Mr. Kemp? God! Damon Kemp, I'm going to conduct your first appearance. God!
For the victim's family, it got so tough they had to walk out. Kemp is currently in the Volusia County Jail awaiting his trial.
This woman testified at her own murder trial. So have you ever heard of Natasha Ryan? Natasha was born in 1984 in Rockhampton, Queensland, Australia. By the time Natasha was 14 years old, she was struggling with a couple of things. She was experimenting with drugs, she had attempted self-harm a couple of times, and she was dating a 21-year-old man named Scott Black. On one occasion, Natasha had run away from home, and she was found several days later at a music festival with Scott. Scott was initially charged with abduction, but these charges would be dropped. On August 31st of 1998, Natasha's mom dropped her off at school, but Natasha was not seen again for the next 5 years. Since Natasha had run away from home several times before, police figured that she would turn up within the next couple of days. But when months went by and Natasha didn't come home, her parents were extremely worried. And to make matters even worse, there was a serial killer that was out during this time. His name was Leonard Frazier. Leonard had abducted 2 women and a 9-year-old little girl. Police were convinced that Leonard had something to do with Natasha's disappearance, and while at first he denied having anything to do with it, he would eventually confess to the police, even telling them that he could lead them to where her remains were. But when they got to that area, Natasha's remains were nowhere to be found, but they still charged him with Natasha's death. But what no one knew is that Natasha was literally only a couple of minutes away from her parents' home. She was living with her boyfriend Scott Black and basically hiding out at his house. She had been living in his closet for the last 5 years. Apparently, Natasha felt guilty that Leonard was going to be tried with her murder when she was still alive. So she called in anonymously, letting somebody know that she was still alive, but police were unable to trace this call. But police did get an anonymous note, and many speculate it was one of Scott's relatives telling them that Natasha was alive and well, living with Scott at his house. So when police made entrance into Scott's house, they did in fact find Natasha alive. Natasha would then testify at Leonard's trial, proving that he was innocent of her murder, and she would go on to make amends with her family as well. Both Scott and Natasha were forced to pay about $16,000 back to the police for the investigation that they caused when it didn't need to happen. And Scott and Natasha would go on to get married and have their own family. Scott also did some time in jail, but what are your thoughts on this case? I thought it was absolutely wild, but
it's wild to me, for one, that the man that said he could lead the police to her remains actually said that he could do that, knowing that he wasn't the one that did it. Like, now I'm wondering, what the hell did he get out of the deal? There's so many questions about this case. What y'all think? Get in the comments.
Während der Mugshot von mir gemacht wurde, hat die Person auf den Ordner geguckt, wo was dann über mich drin stand, hat mich angeguckt und hat gesagt,
bist du nicht vis-à-vis?
What?
Trigger warning for anybody listening to this, but have you ever seen this picture before?
No, we focused on the mom with the kid.
This happened in 1993. The little kid's name, he's a 2-year-old. His name is James Bulger. So what had happened was there was 2 kids, Robert and John, and they had skipped school just to go shoplift, just do hooligan. They also, one of them admitted that they were at the mall looking for a toddler to abduct. That's when they saw James, perfect victim, right? They take him, they go to this canal, they drop it on his head, and then they drag him around, his body around, but he's not dead yet. So after that, they go to, I think, Liverpool or around Liverpool to other stores where the little kid, James, he's crying, he's bleeding, and it's said that there's at least 38 witnesses that witnessed him crying but didn't say anything or didn't report anything to the police. But since nobody said anything, after they took him to a railroad, they tortured him, they killed him, they buried his head under the rubble, put his body where the train tracks are, had a train come, it sliced his fucking body in half to make it look like an accident. They ended up finding the body not too long. It was literally like half a mile away from the mall.
How old were these? They were teenagers?
Guess.
12?
They were 10 years old.
What? 10-year-olds? Damn. 10-year-olds are supposed to be precious, cute little kids and stuff. They out here doing serial killer stuff. That's foul.
Chicago ist die drittgrößte Stadt der Vereinigten Staaten und hat 3 Millionen Einwohner.
What?
Sie schreibt ihm Briefe mit aufbauenden...
Doesn't that look like a mom and daughter sharing a joyous time on TikTok? Well, once the cameras were off, it told a different story. Toddler Kaylee Priest was like any other toddler. She enjoyed playing at the park, she loved her toys, she loved her mom. Unfortunately, her favorite things to do were short-lived. Kaylee Priest was found dead at the flat that she shared with her mom and her mom's boyfriend on August 9, 2020. Paramedics arrived at the scene and they found it odd that a toddler without any underlying medical condition lied there lifeless for no apparent reason. She also had visible bruising. Police would then arrest her mother, Nicola Priest, in order to obtain any information about what happened. They kept Nicola as a suspect, but then later released her due to her making bail. Days after Kaylee Priest's death, her mom would then go on to create a series of TikToks. One of her lip syncing to a song, another one of her dancing, and another one with her showing off her makeup purchase. Unbeknownst to Nicola, authorities took up a full investigation against her and her boyfriend on Kaylee's death. Police also discovered in a text message exchange between her and her boyfriend on the date of July 24, 2020, just a couple days before Kaylee's death, Nicola told her boyfriend, "I'm gonna kill her because she keeps leaving the living room or keeps going into the kitchen. So I've hit her and smacked her for shitting in her nappy." The boyfriend said, "Good, give her one from me." Nicola replied with, "I will, babe." A couple days later, Calum, the boyfriend, messaged Nicola saying, "I'm gonna keep that little brat away from me. I'm sick of your spunking daughter." As you can see in the CCTV footage, this was several hours apparently before Kaylee's death. She was with her mom and never left the building. It shows Nicola's total disinterest in her daughter, by the way, repeatedly checking her reflection in the mirror or scrolling through her phone, not even making eye contact with her little girl, while her daughter periodically would gaze up at her mother's face. At no point in the footage was there any physical contact between her and her daughter. She even neglected to hold her daughter's hand. The mom's boyfriend would then be seen on CCTV footage returning back to the apartment and not leaving the rest of the night, which means that Nicola and Calum were both present during the time that Kaylee sustained her injuries. Medical examinations would show that Kaylee had sustained a broken rib, lower leg fractures, and a broken sternum. It was revealed that Kaylee had endured months and maybe even years of physical abuse. It appeared that her injuries would heal, but then new ones would begin due to the repeated beatings. But the catalyst to Kaylee's death would happen on August 8th, 2020. The couple had been trying to have a little intimate time together when Kaylee did not want to go to sleep and wanted to spend time with her parents instead. This led to the beating and subsequent death of Kaylee. Jurors also heard from witnesses that Nicola would hit her daughter and call her an effing brat. And on one occasion, the neighbors below them heard a loud bang, and then they would hear Kaylee crying, and then Nicola just said, "It's okay, I'll just say she fell off the bed." Nicola and Calum were convicted of manslaughter. They're serving 15 years in prison, which I personally think is ridiculous. I heard of drug dealers sentenced longer than that. Rest in peace.
15 years. Okay, man. I don't even know what to say, man. I don't even know what to say. Y'all, what do y'all think?
3 dead bodies were found stuffed into this hollowed out tree in the middle of the woods in 2010. And when it came to who the murderer was, truth is stranger than fiction. This is Matthew Hoffman, and in November of 2010, he murdered 3 people and kidnapped a 13-year-old girl who he held hostage for days. On November 9th, 2010, Matthew went into the woods and spent the night camping. Then the next morning, on November 10th, he decided to wake up and break into the home of Tina Herman. So, unfortunately that day, when Tina Herman returned to her house, Matthew Hoffman had broken in. And as soon as he saw her, he freaked out, dragged her into a bedroom, and stabbed her multiple times with a hunting knife, killing her. But what Matthew didn't know was that Tina's friend Stephanie was coming over to meet her that morning. And while Matthew was dealing with Tina and her dead body, Stephanie entered the residence. Matthew freaked out. He stabbed Stephanie a number of times with the same hunting knife, even continuing to stab her after she was dead. And hearing all of this, the family's dog started to bark violently, and Matthew then stabbed and killed the family dog as well. After this, he dragged both of the women's bodies into the bathroom, dismembered them in the tub along with the body of the dog, and stuffed the body parts into trash bags. Shortly after finishing the dismemberment process, though, Tina's 2 children, Cody and Sarah, arrived home from school. Immediately after walking into their house, Matthew stabbed Cody in the back of the head, killing him instantly, then chased Sarah up into her room where he bound and gagged her with a cord from a fan in her room. So after dismembering Cody's body and stuffing him into a trash bag as well, Matthew brought out the 3 bodies that he had chopped up and placed into garbage bags, stored them in his car, and then brought out Sarah, who was still alive. After this, he brought Sarah and the bodies of Tina, Stephanie, and Cody back to his own house, where he kept Tina locked in a crawl space.
And this is where the story gets really weird. So Matthew Hoffman was a self-professed tree lover, and his entire home was covered in leaves. I'm talking about piles of leaves, bags of leaves nailed to the walls. And apparently, according to his neighbors at the time, Matthew had exhibited some really strange behavior prior to the murders. He had apparently been trapping squirrels in his backyard, killing them and grilling them. He allegedly spent hours sitting up in the trees in his backyard, just staring at the other trees and watching squirrels. And for a while, he had actually worked as a professional tree trimmer. But let's get back to the story. So after bringing Sarah back to his house, along with the bodies of the other people he had killed, he locked her in a bathroom and even tied himself to her and took a nap. Afterwards, he headed back to the crime scene, did some cleanup, and then eventually brought Sarah into a crawl space, which was once again covered in leaves, dark and damp. And while she was chained up and held hostage inside of this crawl space, for days he visited her regularly and would SA her. Keep in mind, at the time, Sarah was only 13 years old, and her mom, her brother, and her family friend had been murdered right in front of her. Wow. Finally, though, a few days later, Matthew was arrested after police found him parked in his own car right next to the abandoned car of one of his victims. Tina, Coda, Sarah, and Stephanie had been missing for days now, so the police obviously went and searched Matthew's house, and that's when they made the gruesome discovery of Sarah chained up in the crawl space. This is an actual photo that the police released eventually of Sarah exactly as they found her. They actually had to take these photos for evidence before they released her, and they obviously immediately arrested Matthew. So for a while after his arrest, Matthew would not release the location of the bodies to the police. They were desperately trying to find the bodies of those people that he had killed, but he wouldn't tell them anything. That is, until they took the death penalty off the table, and that's when he revealed that he had stuffed the 3 corpses into a hollowed-out tree in the middle of the woods. Police immediately then went and found the tree, and inside they found the bodies of Cody, Stephanie, and Tina in those trash bags, dismembered. Eventually, the tree was torn down, but, I mean, how bizarre is this story? Eventually, Matthew Hoffman was sentenced to life in prison without parole, and this whole story is just kind of mind-blowing. He's been nicknamed the Leaf Killer for doing the things that he did, for his obsession with leaves, the way that he placed the bodies inside of a hollowed-out tree trunk. I've never really heard a story like this, and I hope to never hear one like this again.
Yeah, that's weird, man. Like, bro, like, you went stuffed bodies inside of a hollowed-out tree. I mean, that's one of the most creative hiding spaces of a body that I've ever thought of. Like, they probably would have never found that, bro. Like, think about that. They probably would have never found those bodies, bro, if he hadn't said nothing.
Bro, there's literally someone in there. Is someone in there? Are you okay? Are you still in there? Hey, lady, I called the police.
What?
Weird Crime Facts, Part 37. This is a photo of a New York City police officer coming face to face with a 350-pound tiger that was secretly living in a Harlem apartment. It took more than 6 men to carry the tiger into the elevator while he was sedated. In 1986, a French convict used oranges painted as grenades to escape from prison. He was picked up in a helicopter piloted by his wife, who had been taking flight lessons for months just for the escape.
What?
For decades, a female serial killer named the Phantom of Heilbronn was linked to more than 40 crimes. In 2009, it was discovered that she never existed and her DNA was simply contamination from the cotton swabs used at crime scenes. In 2010, 3 burglars thought they had found a stash of cocaine after breaking into a Florida woman's home. They ended up snorting the ashes of a man and his 2 Great Danes.
Imagine thinking you done stole a bunch of cocaine and turns out there's some dead people and some dead dogs. If you like what you saw, make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Go over to the Discord, join. It's free. Send me videos you would like to see me react to. But until next time, folks.